still waiting for Brooks and Jeremy, I'm going to call the meeting to order because we have a guest at 7:05, and we'll have Bruce start out with Bruce, and then they'll wander in, and we won't take any motions or votes, and we'll wait with Ginny until the rest of the commission gets here. But Bruce, would you like to sit with us? Welcome. How are you?
Hi. My name's Bruce Schaefer. I run some businesses in town. I think that somebody called the office and they're asking to how we think some of the improvements that could be made for our business. What exactly would you like to hear?
So you actually, I'm a little bit familiar with your business, and so you're interesting to us as a commission because not only you're a business owner in town, but you're a property owner in town, I understand, right?
Right, that's right.
You own the office park. Why don't you tell us what you own and what your business is?
We've developed Woodbridge Office Park. It's about 56,000 square feet, and we started off by making it a condominium complex when we started it, but in the beginning, I think it was built in 1988. And
what's the address?
It's 1 Bradley Road.
So just so people who are watching know, it's the corner of Bradley Road and
Amity
Road, and
right.
It's the red brick load.
Right, with
buildings.
the little peaks on it. Mm-hmm. And when we first built it, there was some interest in purchasing, but it ended up that we ended up renting most of it, and that's what we've been doing through the years. So we also have the piece of property behind it. It's about 5 acres, and we would love to develop it so it would be good for the town, and so we're always looking at different ways to develop that piece also.
And 56, how many acres is that?
5 acres.
So you're 5 plus 5.
Right, so we can build another 50,000 square
And do you
feet.
think what do you envision for that additional parcel?
Well, we originally were thinking offices and expanding our office park, but the market for offices we're pretty full most of the time, but we're not sure if it could take another 50,000 square feet. So we've looked at all kinds of different developments, and hopefully pretty soon we'll choose one. We're right next to the development that got approved, but they never built it. And maybe at some point that, I thought that once I saw the area being developed, I could maybe understand what would best fit my piece of property, but that hasn't happened for a while. We also run out of our business park home inspection company. It was the Marvin Schaefer Inspection Service. Now it's the Schaefer Inspection Service, and we've been doing that for 38 years out of our Woodbridge office. We go all over the state, and our business has grown quite a bit, and Woodbridge has been a great place to have our main office.
And who are your customers? Are they the lawyers, the real estate agents, the homeowners, the potential buyers?
We do commercial and residential building inspections. So we do a lot of large office buildings and apartment houses, and we'd also do residential homes. In the park, we have pediatricians and internists, and we have lots of psychology, and so it's quite a bit of medical. We have a skin doctor, and we have a pain doctor, and I would say majority of it's medical. So we do have accountants and some financial analysts who've been there for a while. Most of our tenants have been with us for some time, so they've been there longer than 10 years. Some of the other people there, we do have some book collectors, and as I said, some accountants, and it's pretty good mix of professional people. So I would say that the things that I can think of that would help our, business environment would certainly be understanding the traffic on Amity Road in Litchfield, because it's very tough if you come in the early morning, 7:30 to 8, drive down Amity Road. You're really held up in traffic, and the same thing goes when you leave about 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The traffic's pretty backed up on Litchfield.
Right. So we've been working, and we our commission spearheaded with the former first selectman Ellen Scalatar in having DOT work on improving the entrance and exit ramp on 59. And I'm happy to say it's going to happen this spring. It's been in the planning stage for about a year and a half. That there'll be significant improvements to the intersection, a widening of Litchfield Turnpike from Lucy Road to 59. And in addition, on the other side on the New Haven side, reconfiguring the traffic there. So we expect after the construction delays, the delays caused by construction, that there'll be a significant improvement. That being said, that improvement will bring the intersection up from an F to a C-. The actual long-term plan for that, for really improving the intersection and bringing it up to an A, is tied to the tunnel project. We were successful in peeling off this interim improvement from the tunnel project, because the tunnel project is now on hold.
Was that putting another tunnel in? Is that
they're talking about putting another tube in, but funding for that, given the state's fiscal situation, is on permanent hold. And I don't think it's shovel ready yet. So even if there was infrastructure, I'm not sure if they would go to federal funding, if there was federal funding available. But I'm relieved to say that you should see some improvement. I think there's more improvement that needs to be made. I personally, having driven that area enough times, I would love to see a light at the corner of Bradley Road and Amity Road. But the state hasn't felt the need to do that. And that's a state road, so Woodbridge has very little control.
Well, any improvement will be good improvement.
But you will see, by this time next year, there should be significant improvement on the loading. Even if you've noticed, coming up from New Haven, they put a right turn only going onto Pond Lily, and that's improved the traffic flow coming from that side and alleviated some of the congestion coming down on Litchfield Turnpike.
I would think if the committee could figure out a way to come up with a Woodbridge downtown, and I don't, I've read all the reports and I've seen, what was that one that came from Yale?
Yale Urban Design Workshop.
Right. And I've read all those reports, and it's challenging to figure out how to do that, because it was developed through the years, and there's different parts of it that don't go along with other parts. So it seems to me as though coming off of Amity Road, behind Amity Road, where the bowling alley is and all that commercial area is already commercial. You have the teen center and you have the bank and a couple banks. That seems to me like the easiest place to develop some type of a commercial development, where you could have street and parking and maybe some restaurants, cafes and things like that. But other than that, it would really take quite a change in the lower area there to make some sort of a feel like that. So
part of the process has been, after the Yale Urban Design Workshop proposal, which we worked on, the EDC worked on, it went to the town, and there were many different charrettes where the town took input on the ideas presented by Yale. And as part of the plan of conservation and development, which towns and cities have to do every 10 years, Woodbridge has done that, and what the plan of conservation development will do and what we're kind of waiting for at EDC is that will take the ideas presented by Yale and create zoning ordinances to encourage and to give definition of what that area should look like. Because right now there really is no definition, and developers like you, I think, want to know, without having to go fight against the town, what the maximum you can build is. And, can I build residential? Can I build commercial? You don't want to, I imagine you don't want to spend a couple of years fighting with the town about your proposal. Those regulations, the new zoning regulations, should be out imminently. And I think you'll find, I encourage you to look at those for your 5 acres and to brainstorm. And we're happy to brainstorm with you at that point and to come to us and say, I think that I can build this, and this is what I want to build. And we'd like to be your advocate if you find something within the zoning regs that you want to build. If you see, Woodbridge hired the town planner who had worked on the Hampden ordinances. And if you go down Whitney Avenue now, because they changed the ordinances in accordance with their POCD, if you go down Whitney Avenue now, it's incredible how much construction is going on. Small scale construction in conformance with the town character, but all in accordance with the zoning. And so I'm hopeful that once we have our new regs in place, you'll take a look and say, I know I can do this in my 5 acres. Maybe I build partly commercial, partly residential. I'm not sure what you'll decide to do. But it should be pretty specifically outlined there. And that'll give you guidance. And so long as you and your banks feel that it's commercially feasible, we're happy, and it's within the zoning ordinances. Please come before us. We would like to help you work with the town to make sure that you can optimize your vacant land.
That'd be great. Now, wasn't that plan? Didn't that pretty much say that the Bradley Road, isn't that what they were going to try to develop, or they wanted like a town center there? And
one of the unusual thing about Woodbridge is that the town center is here, and that the town actually doesn't own land to create a town center there. So I think one of the proposals early on was that there should be some sort of gazebo-type structure on somebody's land, because can't be public land.
Right.
So I think it's going to be up to market forces to develop what that looks like. But we, as town of Woodbridge, don't own or control any of the land down there to create a destination for concerts or for something to bring people down, which is unfortunate.
But you could certainly help the development process, I think. Like you say, if somebody could have a vision of what it should look like in 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then start to work towards that, I think that it could come together.
And that's our goal. That's our goal. We're we're sort of in the waiting mode right now, because we worked with Yale, and then we worked with town planning and zoning, and now we're just waiting for them to issue those regulations. And then, we're hopeful. I know Jim Urbano has proceeded, although you envision, it's interesting because part of the Yale plan is what they found is that we have a lot of vacant space down there, and there's not a critical mass of people, of residents down there to create a town atmosphere. Because if you look at all the old towns, it was a mixture of commercial and residential. You mentioned the Selden Plaza. We actually had gone to them with Yale, and they weren't really interested in working to improve their buildings in the way that Yale was recommending. So that was a non-starter at that point. But Jim Urbano owns a piece of land right behind there on Hazel Terrace, and he came before us to ask for our support before he went before TP&Z.
Didn't he go for residential?
He went for residential, and we actually wrote a letter for him saying that we felt it was in conformance with what Yale had recommended, and he was approved.
Oh, that's great.
Well, sort of.
What? Sort of? What happened now?
I don't think it's really
Okay.
completely approved. I
Okay.
think they're still debating the tower structure, and they knocked down his size of the units that he could build
Oh,
by
okay.
half.
Oh,
So they were supposed to be 1,300, and now they're like 650 or something like that. So I'm
Okay.
not too sure what they're doing, to be honest.
okay. So never mind. I was told originally he told me he was approved, but I guess that's not the case. But anyway, we're happy to be here. But he envisions residential. He thought that was the optimum use for that property.
Well, apartments might be a good thing. I mean, I think that you bring traffic and people down there. I think it would. I mean, I pulled out of my parking lot coming here, and it really seemed like the restaurant across the street was packed tonight.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Always glad
so
to hear that.
I think you could use lots more, commercial structures
Right.
like that, and it would certainly give a certain character to the whole area.
Bruce, is there a place to put another entrance to your 5 acres from Old Amity?
Well, it actually comes up to Oldham.
So there's a drive that goes through?
Yeah, we had there's a 2-family house on it, so, and there's land that you can go into the 5 acres, and then we also have access through our park also, so.
Do you own the
Oh, I knew
two-family
that.
house? Sorry.
Yeah, that's part of the 5
Okay.
acres.
You know what I'm talking about, where Old Amity
Yeah,
started?
no, I know.
Yeah, it's
like-
that
Definitely
little
needs
road right there. Actually,
Nice way
our
out.
property comes right onto Amity Road.
Huh.
So we have access to Amity Road, but it's such a busy street.
Right, it'd be nice
It'd
to
be
feed
much
out.
nicer to come, I think, on Old Amity Road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come up over there. It's going to be one of these driveways that's a little steep because there is a pretty good pitch there.
Yeah, and that'll allow them to sort of come back around into a
Yeah.
slow, gradual way onto the road.
So you could certainly come off of that.
Right. One of the things that I think you'll find when the new regs are promulgated is that there'll be less parking required. What Yale did find was we have an overabundance of pavement, which is not conducive to economic vitality. You actually want less pavement and more co-shared parking.
I think ours is one for every 250 square feet of office, and we always have a lot of extra
Exactly.
parking in our parking lot.
Exactly. I think that was the regulations in the 70s and 80s, but now planners have looked at that and realized that that's just it's not good. It's too much parking. There's too much excess, and environmentally, it's not great. It's not good for the environment to have that much impervious surface.
I mean, we have the dermatologist, as I said, and we have a dentist who just moved in. And there's always, that they love it because they were down on Whaley Avenue and parking was such a nightmare, and now it's not an issue for him at all.
Great. Well, we're here.
Well, I'd love to, figure out, what would be a good development, and if you could be of any help, I certainly would come in front of you, and if you get behind the project and it helps out, that would be great.
Great. Well, thank you for
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have 4 now, and according to our town council, that's a quorum for us, and we can move on to the. Actually, first I want to go. We have had 2 resignations this past month. Kate Brown has resigned from the commission, and Evan Tracton. Evan was only on for a very short time, but it was really wonderful to have him here because of his experience in New Haven, and I'm sorry to see him go. And Kate was just a dynamo. Who was on for a number of years, came before us, like Bruce did, for her business, because she still wanted to start the Scarecrow Festival, and with Kate spearheading it evolved into Fallapalooza. Which was more from one little festival at one building in town, where we were concerned about stepping on everybody else's toes with the road race and Massaro Farm and all the other things that were going on in town. And it's now a month-long festival of all the different happenings that take place in October in Woodbridge, which the town and the staff in town helps to coordinate getting all those things posted online and promoted. And Kate was really instrumental. So we will certainly miss her, but she promised me she'll come back and help when she can. But thank you. Item number 3, we need to have a motion to amend the agenda because Jamie pointed out that we also need to approve the November minutes. So if I can have a motion to add the November minutes for approval. And a second? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous? Okay, so now may I have a motion to approve the January and the November minutes?
I wasn't here for January.
Okay. I wasn't here for January, but I've looked at them, so I can. And so, and all in favor? Okay. Those who are here are approving it, so, or have read it. Well, maybe we should separate those, because can you approve? So let's do November. Okay, let's do November minutes. I'm sorry. So January is approved by Jamie and myself, and now let's do November. Can I have a motion to approve the November minutes? All in favor? A second, sorry?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously pass. Perfect. We next have a item for public comment. Anybody here from the public wants to comment? Okay, we can move on. And now we have some invited guests, which I'm very excited for. We actually did invited guests, sorry. That was Bruce Schaefer. Now we have Jenny Kozlowski of Rex.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And do you want to explain who you are?
Sure. And first I'm going to apologize. I have a bit of a cold, and hopefully it's only a bit of a cold, and it will go away as quickly as it has arrived. I'm Jenny Kozlowski. I'm the CEO of Rex Development, which is a regional economic development organization that serves South Central Connecticut from Milford to Madison to Meriden. I'm here to present on our 2018 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is a 5-year update. And this is our 4th update. And I'm proud to say that the first one was done by Bob Santee at CERC back in 2003. And so we did one in 2018, 2013, and 2018. And I just need my PowerPoint. So what the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy provides for the region is a roadmap for the next 5 years. And I'm sure this is not new news to any of you. What we did in 2003, the world has changed dramatically, and it's changing at a very rapid rate. This plan allows for the region to have the ability to apply for some federal funding from the US EDA for infrastructure projects. And as you were discussing with Mr. Schaefer, as you start to firm up your plans, there may be an opportunity for some federal funding that Woodbridge by itself would not be eligible because you are not a distressed municipality, but because you're a member of this community, there may be funds available to the town that could help move your process along. And we'll go to the next slide. We'll go to the next slide. This region was the first region to become an economic development district in the state of Connecticut in 2011. Prior to that, we weren't allowed to have economic development districts because they weren't in Connecticut statute. So thanks to Bob's hard work and laying the groundwork, we're proud that we're finally able to access some of these resources on the federal level. So the process it's about a 15 to 18 month process. The first thing we do is create an economic development strategic planning committee, and it's supposed to be representative of the region as a whole. And we've done a good job, and we have many members who have been serving on the strategic planning from 2008 all the way up to 2018. So the last time we did the update in 2013, it was my first time as the executive director doing the update, and we hired an outside consultant. And one of the things that we found is that the consultant comes in and does the project, but doesn't really have as deep of a connection into our communities. So this time we've decided to do it internally, and it is a significant undertaking. In 2013, the report was 151 pages, not including the appendix. And during the Obama administration, they've changed the guidelines. It's supposed to be between 25 and 35 pages, which is a significant editing challenge. You can have appendix, but again, people are generally not going to cross-reference to those appendix. So we're in the process right now of consolidating the information that we found and we developed with our committees, and it is a real challenge. So this time we really engaged our strategic planning committee, and we created committees, and that they've been working committees. They've spent a lot of hours and time. So the 5 committees are business recruitment and retention, workforce and housing, infrastructure, real estate, land use and sustainability, marketing, communications, and stakeholder education. Many of these committees had subcommittees, particularly like looking at workforce and housing, looking at those two topics together and then separately. And as of last Friday, they had to submit their recommendations for goals and objectives within these areas. In 2013, we had 6 large goals with 29 objectives, and we have 3 people on staff. So lesson learned there as well. We are going to try to narrow the goals and objectives to things that we can really impact. And giving you an example, addressing climate resiliency. That's not something that really Rex can do itself, but it can influence, but it shouldn't really be high on the objectives or a separate goal. So the committees gathered information and created a SWOT analysis for each one of these areas, and there were some common themes which we'll get to. And then they did interviews, which was fascinating because we've talked to over 50 businesses and organizations within the region, and they all have a little bit of a different perspective. And then obviously data research. So we're now up to the recommendations and we're coming out and doing our presentations. So this week you are number 5. We did 2 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday, 2 today. We have 2 more next week and some the following week. So we'll get to all 15 towns plus other organizations in the region to get input. And then when we have the draft document, we'll send it out to you again and look for more input. And that's a very important portion of this process, is to get as much input as possible. Then we bring it back to the Rex Board of Directors, and they'll give us input. We'll bring it to the chief elected officials at South Central Regional Council of Governments, and then we'll submit to EDA, and then we'll establish the implementation teams.
What is EDA, I'm sorry?
U.S. Economic Development Administration. Our strength, which is we are very fortunate. We have a strong knowledge economy with relatively stable key economic drivers, which is not new news to this group. You know, healthcare, bio, higher ed, culture and tourism, advanced manufacturing. And from 2013, when we were coming out of the recession, we're now seeing our unemployment rate to 5.2%. And what I would caution you at this point is that the data is showing that we are having less people employed. So yes, that looks like it's a good news story, but it may be a mixed message. We need more folks to fill jobs that are currently going unfilled, and more growth. We have an exceptional quality of life, which many other communities would kill for. And our apartment rentals are approximately half the cost of New York City and Boston, so we are much more affordable. And we are improving our intrastate rail system and investing more in transit-oriented development along Shoreline East and the New Haven, Hartford, Springfield line, which is now called the Hartford line. So, but people don't know that yet. In terms of weaknesses, which again is not going to be new news, is the state's fiscal situation. We hear this time and time again. With the uncertainty, it creates anxiety, misinformation, a reluctance to invest. Our aging workforce, which is significant in some of our more mature towns, and the pipeline for some industry clusters, especially manufacturing, is very limited. However, we do have a very highly educated workforce, but there's a skill mismatch, and we need to address that. And lack of developable land. We had 2 large sites in the region. One was Pratt & Whitney in North Haven, and that is now being converted to an Amazon distribution center, and the groundbreaking is due to take place any day now. And then the second largest site was the site on Route 34, the Acorn site, and that has been sold to Yale New Haven Healthcare System for a distribution center. So we don't have any 100+ acre sites currently on the market unless you're aware of something that new has come online. So that is a challenge when we're out there soliciting bigger projects. And then our other challenge is affordable housing, not only for our young people, but for our aging population. And as you were pointing out earlier, getting a project through in a community like Woodbridge, somebody wants to sell their house but wants to stay in the community and move to something smaller, there's limited availability of that product. And then public transportation needs to better coordinate, especially east-west service along the shoreline. We've seen some development in the shoreline towns in Brantford, Guilford, and Madison, but they're having challenges getting workers that are not readily available in those communities from other communities around the ring city to be able to get to those job opportunities. In terms of opportunities, our bioscience is continuing to grow despite some setbacks with the Alexion departure. But one of the things that we feel that we need to do is not try to be everything to everyone, and we should focus on our strength, which is research. Yale University receives about $445 million in grants from the National Institutes of Health, and we should capitalize on that sector and be better known and more collaborative with other communities. And we shouldn't be, our strategy should not be poaching from other areas. That doesn't help us at all. And we should grow the pie, not cut the pie. We need to develop a stronger collaboration between industry and education. In 2013, we started a project with Southern Connecticut State University to create a biopath pipeline for those students who are receiving their degree in bio. One of the things that we found out that the students weren't necessarily prepared for the bio jobs that we have in our market. So we worked with the university to receive accreditation and expand their offering so that the graduates, most of the students who are in-state residents, most of those students stay in-state if they have an opportunity. So last April, we finally had approval, and it's not an easy process, to add these programs to Southern. And now they're taking them throughout the whole state university system. We also started a collaboration with Gateway Community College for folks who might not be looking for a 4-year degree but are looking for a tech career. And we created a coding program that they can do in certificates over the course of time. And the investment for folks who are in transition isn't as great as a full 4-year university. And we've had success with that program as well. So we're also looking to develop more training programs for manufacturing. We know that there's going to be continued demand for electric boat, UTC, Sikorsky, as well as the supply chain. And right now, electric boat is at 14,000 employees and only growing. And when we looked at our data, the tech sector, which is New Haven is known for, actually the count is very small because it's counted within other sectors. So one of the things that we found fascinating is that Yale New Haven Health System has a very high tech component, but they're not counted in tech. So we have been removing the layers to get a real count. According to the actual count, there's about 466 jobs, which there is far greater, and we think the number is closer to 5,000 jobs within that sector. And the other piece that we're working on, the other opportunity, is letting folks like you know and having, hopefully you're sharing it with other folks. And then we have a growing demand for hotels, including boutique and long-term stay. Right now we have 9 hotels in the region, either under construction or soon to be under construction. And in 2017, Airbnb generated 15,000 nights in the city of New Haven alone. So folks can't get hotels because the demand is so high, and particularly around the university and the research. And these aren't folks that are coming in and staying for one night or a weekend. They're coming in because they're a travel healthcare professional. They're doing a research project, and they can't find a hotel or a long-term hotel to stay in. So we're seeing a lot of development in that area. Consistent international outreach. We are going back to Germany at the end of April to Hannover Messe. Yesterday we met with the new German representative who has been hired by CERC to do recruiting through Germany, and we are concerned with an upcoming gubernatorial election that people are going to pull back on that international recruitment, and that would definitely be a negative impact on us. Tweed New Haven Airport, if you haven't heard, we have jet service now. And our flights are doing much better. And we need to still work on getting that runway lengthened and the statute rescinded so that we can attract more air service. Without air service, it will be an uphill battle. And then the Port of New Haven is an underutilized opportunity, and we're looking to see if we can increase use there. Threats, again, the state's fiscal situation, increased competition from other states, especially in manufacturing. I don't know how many of you drive over the Q Bridge or by exit 43 on 95 South. There's an electronic billboard that's running right now from the state of Indiana, and their website is astatethatworks.com or .org, and they are actively soliciting businesses in our region. And then there's a city in Florida whose mayor is calling businesses located along the shoreline, offering them opportunities to go to that city. So if we want to keep our companies, we have to take care of them, we have to reach out to them, and we have to work on creating an environment for them to stay here. Climate change, we talked a little bit about that. As sea rise is coming, we need to harden our infrastructure, which I think we all learned about during Sandy and Irene, and we need to be better prepared for those types of events. And the state of Connecticut has done a great job in funding brownfield remediation in the entire state. And with the changing administration, we would like to see that funding continued because it's brought a lot of properties back into useful life, as well as building up grand lists. And to your earlier discussion, we are concerned about vacant retail spaces and what some alternate uses are for those spaces to keep them in useful life. And we've looked at some studies where malls have converted into affordable housing units and has the amenities of a mall that keeps people engaged. And then another threat is the aging infrastructure in our transportation system, particularly along the rail line along the eastern part of the state. And negative publicity generated by the outmigration of companies. I think we've all heard about GE more than enough, but that definitely sends a negative message, and the companies that are moving in don't get enough attention because there are companies that are moving in. Millennial debt, which is millennial student debt, is currently at over $1 trillion. We need to address those issues. So for our next steps, we are going to continue to do community outreach, work on establishing goals and objectives, and this is something that all of us in economic development wrestle with, is how do we evaluate what we're doing and if it is effective. And in terms of creating a team, we do need to have more people engaged in addressing these issues and continuing to communicate our annual updates. So at this point, we would like feedback from various groups on how things are going, and obviously Mr. Schaefer gave us a look-see into some of the challenges as he sees going forward, and we'd be interested in hearing what the commission is thinking. And you've had a pretty awesome year here.
So, if I can start, thank
Sure.
you. We've had a busy year. First off, if we can just step back, because this
Sure.
is always confusing to me, and I'm sure to people who are watching. So, REX is the Regional Economic Exchange. It's basically New Haven County.
No, New Haven County, it would go all the way north to Waterbury, and would include the valley towns on the east side of the Housatonic.
Okay.
This is south central Connecticut, so it goes from Meriden all the way down to, like if you were to make a triangle, down to Milford, across up to Madison, and back up to Meriden. So it's like a triangle.
Okay.
So it's the 15 towns which would be considered the New Haven as the core city and those suburban towns.
Great. And how does that relate to CERC?
So CERC is the state agency that does business recruitment for the entire state.
Okay.
They are, and you're more than welcome to do the pitch. They are funded by the state of Connecticut plus the utilities, particularly Eversource, Avangrid, which is
Right.
made up of
UI.
UI, and then they have some other members.
We do have some
Water-
private sector members
Okay.
as
Right,
well.
and
We
the
have
water
all the
com-
regulated utilities.
Okay.
Right, and that's mandated, and you contribute towards that in the billing process.
Okay.
And then they have some voluntary contributors.
Okay.
Their budget is around 2.5 million.
Okay.
Our budget's about $500,000.
Okay. And where does your funding come from then?
From
That's
the
just-
towns
Okay.
contribute on a 30 cents per capita basis.
Okay.
Then we have grants. We have contracts to provide services, much like CERC.
Mhm.
We provide more municipal contract services for the city of New Haven. We did a brownfield assessment for the town of Bethany.
Uh-huh.
And then we all go out and raise money.
Okay. Great. So, just in common, I took some notes while I was
Sure.
talking. So, in terms of environmental, well, first off, I took the flight from Tweed. And
Yay!
I mean, I used to take the propeller plane, but
Right.
it was amazing actually that it was full. Like the propeller planes, it was never really, people
Right.
weren't excited about it. It was
Right.
really full. It was fabulous. So,
Right. We're hoping to get another flight in. Every
from
day.
Philly or from somewhere else?
No. So there's 3 flights
Right,
a
it used
day
to be
now.
4.
Right. So we're trying to get back to the 4.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And because of the increased seat capacity,
Uh-huh.
our employments are going up significantly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we're having less issues with weather delays
Mhm.
because the service is more reliable because of the type of plane.
Okay, great. So one thing, when you talked about environmental, that you sort of stepped back from that, in taking the flight into Philly, the one thing, Philly actually has an incredible environmental mandate.
Mhm.
And when you land in Philly, you actually see, just rows of solar panels. And the other thing that they have done is, because they have a stormwater issue, and I'm not sure that, I think we do have one as well,
Right.
that they have required all new buildings to have, I think, absorbent materials on as part of the construction. And so I'm kind of disappointed that we're stepping back from that in Connecticut, because that's what it sounds like, that's not an issue. Because I think that for millennials, that's attractive, that when you look out on a building, new construction, you actually see grass on top instead of just concrete. And in terms of stormwater issues, it's
So to the earlier conversation about the number of parking spaces and the amount of asphalt, towns are doing that on a town-by-town basis,
okay.
not on a statewide basis.
Okay.
And it would be, I think, one of the challenges of having 169 towns is town rule.
Mm-hmm.
So some towns would be resistant for it to come from the state. So, for example, New Haven is having a stormwater issue, and they're decreasing the number of parking spaces required.
Okay.
And they're also encouraging developers, particularly in the new developments, to use newer materials to mitigate some of these
And are
lumps.
they doing anything with, actually on the building little, green areas on the building? that
Right.
absorb?
So Alexion's building does have a garden on the top.
Okay, uh-huh.
And then the new 360 State Street has a fuel cell, so they're generating all their own electricity.
Okay.
So as projects are coming online, that is one of the components that the different projects are presenting. And one of the goals is trying to get certified, whether you're a gold or silver.
Yeah, the LEED.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So, and I
Okay.
think it's the town-by-town basis that is changing. In terms of solar, North Haven has put in a solar field where they're, I don't know if it's a dump is the correct word, whatever.
Okay. Landfill?
Landfill, right as you're coming down Universal Drive. So
Uh-huh.
some
Okay.
communities are taking and reusing their land that way.
Okay.
It depends on a community basis.
But it's not regional at this point.
There isn't a regional effort because, again, you come back to
Right.
these
They
towns.
shit, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
each town is different.
Okay.
Some towns are more progressive than others.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also some cost factors.
No, I understand.
So are the standing committees within
The
recs?
sits? Yep.
I'm on your site peeking at them, but
Right.
the standing committees that you guys have are the areas where you think that
The highest and best use of
the
what
most ROI,
right.
because the fact that, like you said, you can't influence directly
Right,
town policy, like zoning and stuff like that.
right.
Okay.
We testify in the event that somebody has, a proposal, but I don't know that it's enough to sway
Mhm.
And because we do have access to some other research of best practices, and CERC being one of those resources, it's sometimes helpful.
The other, you raised Airbnb. Is there any attempt to try to tax?
So
Because I know other other communities are finding ways to try to, tax the occupancy on that.
So Commissioner Kevin Sullivan, who is the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue Services, reached a settlement with Airbnb in June of 2016. So starting July of 2017, they have a contract to pay 15% or collect 15% on all the Airbnb rentals in the state of Connecticut,
Right.
which this year totaled a little bit more than $3 million.
Okay.
That goes into the state tourism.
So
occupancy.
Airbnb will collect that from the visitor.
Yes,
Okay.
they're
So it doesn't impact the homeowner, whoever's renting out. It's just
no,
right.
they just collect it and they send it in.
Okay.
And because it's not in statute, which is something that we are working with Kevin Sullivan to put it into statute, so that it doesn't only apply to Airbnb, because there's not an agreement with
Home away.
HomeAway, Vacation Rental by Owner, Flipkey, all those
Right.
other platforms,
Right.
because they're indicating they're not the same business model as Airbnb, which lawyers at DRS are working to resolve, because there's probably another $3 million that is transacting.
Right.
And if there's
Interesting.
15,000 room nights generated in New Haven, which is about 120 sold out nights at the study, if you do
Right.
the math.
Right.
And the next highest community is Stonington with about 4,800.
Huh.
And if you look at the 2016 numbers, it was a little over 11,000. So it's going to continue to increase.
Right.
And again, with Connecticut's fiscal situation, they should be contributing to our state. And it only makes sense. I think as we're starting to understand the sharing economy, some of these discrepancies are going to be addressed in a way that it's more fair and balanced.
Does Uber get charged also?
Uber does get charged. I think they're charged sales tax, but I will confirm that.
Okay. And Lyft and all the other.
Yeah.
And my just one more question about the Long
Sure.
Wharf proposal. I know I've seen a little bit about it in the paper.
The city's Long Wharf.
Yeah,
proposal?
is that New Haven who's?
Yeah, that was a grant that the city of New Haven had applied for, and they're going through the planning process about it, which it will be transformational. Waterfront is such a prized asset in any community, and I think we would all agree it hasn't necessarily been received the focus that it should. And I think you'll see some additional development on that area that will bring more people into the region. And when you come to the intersection of 91, 95, unless you were to exit the highway and go left, you really don't know what the city of New Haven looks like. And you kind of just think it's this oil tank farm and 91 North. So I think this is going to be very helpful in bringing more people into the region. We expect to see more development at the former Pirelli site. And Yale New Haven Health System.
And does IKEA own the former Pirelli site?
Yes.
Okay.
Where the Yale New Haven Health System has the building that's on the corner there,
Yep.
there's a development project that's being currently reviewed that will upgrade that site as well. And then there's discussion at the former Gateway site.
And what about the Haven, the mall
Haven,
site?
right. They are going through the approval process. They're due to submit their plans, I believe, in March. There's been a transition there with Mayor Rossi coming in after Mayor O'Brien. Fred Basori, which some of you may already know from his work in real estate in the community, is now their economic development administrator. So, and they just approved work to start on the Yale New Haven Healthcare System Distribution Center. So I think obviously that borders your community. It's exciting, to have two big projects between Amazon, which is 850,000 square feet, and then this distribution center in West Haven. And then we are anticipating new news coming out of Wallingford for the former Bristol Myers site with an expected new use there. So things have changed since 2013, when it was more challenging. We have a lot of projects in the region around residential development. In Guilford, Wallingford has a project that has 200 units. We have a number of units under construction in Milford, Branford, and Guilford. So this is exciting.
What about down on Orange Street? On the AT&T site? Are they breaking ground there any?
Spinnaker?
Yeah.
Yes,
Spinnaker.
yeah. They're scheduled to break ground at that site sometime this spring. They're going through the final approval, and they will start by building the garage because as part of that development agreement requires that they provide parking to current Frontier employees. So right now they'll be displaced, which will create a little bit of stress on the parking system. But they're going to get the garage done hopefully by fall or early next year. So and then they'll start building on top of it the residential units.
And what about the proposal for hotel by a Coliseum site?
So
Is
the
it-
Live, Work, Learn, Play,
Yeah,
they just they received the $21 million Tiger grant to move the utilities and to
Okay.
prepare the site.
Okay.
That will go out to RFP this summer
Wow.
and start in the fall. I think they've worked out their agreements with the developer and for Live, Work, Learn, and Play about the position of the hotel, and hopefully that will continue to move forward. And just in that area, there's a number of other hotel projects
Mhm.
that will be underway sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
is
I-
there, oh, sorry. No, is there plans to develop I know the Duncan changed hands. Is there
Right.
plans to demo and change over that building?
They're not demo; it's a conversion.
They're just converting it
And
from
yeah, and they're well underway. I don't know if you've driven down there.
Yeah, I drive down.
Yeah, the restaurant that's
On Chapel
downstairs.
Street,
Yeah, Thai Taste. They've
Yeah.
moved out, and there's a lot of construction on that site
Yeah.
right now. And then the other hotel that's under construction is the extended stay at the corner of George and High. It used to be budget rent
Right,
car.
right, right, right. Oh, I didn't realize it was extended stay. I thought it was
134 rooms, extended stay.
Huh.
And that's close proximity to the hospital. So if you're coming in as a travel nurse or as some travel associated with the hospital, the med school, or the companies that are located at 300 George Street, you now will have a hotel across the street that has the amenities that, for example, the New Haven Hotel doesn't have, or the Omni doesn't
Right,
have.
right, right. What about? I know there's a site actually. Alexion actually had a second site.
So that's 101. We call that 101 College Street. So this Tiger grant will start to prepare that.
Oh, really?
That's all
Okay.
interrelated.
Oh, okay.
The city is looking to move forward planning that site. There has not been an identified user. There are some discussions going on, so that's going to continue to move forward.
That was.
But there's
Well, that's all.
it's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a new hotel going in Brantford, across the street, a boutique hotel. There's a Residence Inn that's being built in Hamden. There's a Homewood Suites that's being built in Orange, right outside the Yale Campus West. And there are new businesses moving in and starting across the region.
And I actually drove down 95 in Milford. I forget. Is it Burnt Road, Plain Road? There's like 3 buildings across from a hotel. There was actually demolition signs on them, like old houses.
Right. That's
What-
that's a Robert Smith MetroStar project.
Okay.
You might be familiar with him because he's doing the former Salvation Army site in New Haven. Plus, he's done a number of developments in Milford.
Right,
So you're
yeah.
seeing MetroStar.
Right, yeah.
That's who that is.
And is that residential then?
That's residential, mixed use, and a hotel, and a police station.
Wow.
The police station isn't private. They're going to just,
Right. Obviously.
yeah.
Okay.
But that's another big site that's no longer going to be available for other development.
Wonderful. And is there any interest in any other airlines coming into Tweed?
There is discussion with 2 other airlines. If we can get the extension approved, they would come immediately. So it would give us service to D.C., Chicago, and Florida.
Wow.
Wouldn't
So
that be
what
awesome?
can we do to help get the extension approved?
We need you to work with the legislative delegation, which I think obviously the legislative delegation here is very supportive. So there's no criticism there. We just have to.
Well, let us know what,
Right.
what we can do.
We
'cause-
will. We will. No, it would be
In
great.
terms of the grants that are available, a big part of the SEDS is to focus on grant funding. Is that correct?
If you needed federal grant funding around EDA, but no, it's really a broader roadmap for the entire region. There is no other planning because there's not a county system here. There's not a regional system. So if there isn't this voluntary effort, the municipalities would go it alone. And because this organization's been around since 1996, which is very progressive for towns in the state, we've used it for the region. And they've used it around the municipal plan of conservation and development. We kind of try to make sure we are all on the same page. So it doesn't necessarily mean a grant opportunity, but when we're going out and talking to businesses that we're trying to recruit, it's good to have a document that says we work together. And if you go to Woodbridge or you go to New Haven, they're not isolated and working in silos.
So, for example, like the Bayer property that's been here, some vacant, other than JCC helping out for a little bit there.
Right.
That's a good piece of land that we have vacant in our community.
For
For
P2
research.
science.
Okay, I was going to say,
Yeah,
did
I'm
P2 Science leave?
No.
Right, and that was a great, we would have lost P2 Science if you did not have that building. They were going to go to a town north of here off of Route 8, and fortunately, Jody and First Selectman Skalatar rolled out the red carpet, and they're still here, and that's been 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And, we couldn't find a facility for them to do their production here, so they ended up doing their production in Naugatuck because they needed a transfer site because of their science. But these are the things that we need to continue to invest in.
And so then how do you work with CERC? Because we're now working with CERC.
So I sit on the CERC board, and we have regular conversations.
Are you housed in the same place?
No, she's in Rocky Hill.
Okay.
We also bring all of regional economic development
Right.
organizations together quarterly so that everyone's talking together
Mhm.
statewide, and so Rex is represented every time at that as well.
And they also manage the Connecticut Economic Development Association that is representative of all the folks across the state. We really go to them for best practices, and because they have a larger staff, if we have someone who's looking to start a business, they have a person on staff, Beth Wallace, I don't know if you've met her, and she can take a person and walk them through all the steps they need to do on the licensing and registration side. If we need research, we would go to CERC because that's what they have. They do the international recruitment on a much larger scale. They have contracts not only with Germany but with Israel and Brazil. They were very instrumental in getting Hub 55 started in New Haven, which is a Brazilian-based incubator. And want to be perfectly clear, we don't duplicate services because they're on a larger scale and we are on a more micro scale, and we work together. There's so much work that needs to be done. We don't need to.
So on the work that needs to be done, I'm not sure who to say this to, but I know that a couple of years ago when the state rolled out all these grant proposals for existing businesses, they were very effective at rolling them out. Now you kind of have to, they're there and you kind of have to search for them. I sit on this committee, so I know about them, and so we've been able to take advantage of them for our business, but I think that perhaps there's opportunities to revisit existing businesses to let them know within the area, let them know what the programs are that exist.
As the state is transitioning through this fiscal challenge, the availability of some of those programs isn't as readily available as it was in the past, so it's sort of by a case-by-case basis. So we try to stay up with it as much as we can, but right now it is a challenge.
Right. But even I know there's money for manufacturing, and there's still money for manufacturing, but I don't know that it's being effectively communicated to the manufacturers. You would know.
Right. And again, I think Ed Fenton's doing a great job. I get an email on a regular basis about these programs. But, I'll use an example. We were out visiting a company a couple of weeks ago who took part in the loan program for hiring new people when the Malloy administration came in. And now they're in a situation where they're going to grow again. And they didn't know who to call.
Right. No, that's exactly my point.
You had a person. You had a project manager.
Exactly my point.
And no owners have changed. We were a little dumbfounded. Take that out of there. So we went back in and we brought, our regional representative from DECD and another individual who's on loan from CI. and just kind of did a refresher course, and we're working with them. But yeah, you know, we're trying. You send out newsletters. We send out newsletters to the town. If you have a suggestion on a better way to communicate, let us know. I don't know. We're all on Twitter,
it may
we're
just
all
be
on
a little.
Facebook.
I think it may just be a little press release needs to
Right.
go out again about the programs. I mean, I think it could be as simple as that of making sure that businesses know that these are out there. Because the press releases went out and Libby
Right.
Gold went around the state and
Yep.
really, toured the programs and made sure everybody was. But that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. at
Right.
least. And so maybe it's time to not necessarily, because of the budget crunch, roll that out in the same way, but at least do some
Right.
PR about it.
Right. And there's lots of success stories. And I think we hear about the GEs, and today I'm sure you heard Mass Mutual is consolidating up into Massachusetts. We don't do a good job about telling our success stories. And we've had companies that have moved here. We have companies that are expanding. And really, what other state our size has a Sikorsky, Pratt & Whitney, and an electric boat? I mean, that's terrific. And I think some of us need to shout it a little louder.
Yes. Bruce?
How come some of your funds don't go towards PR?
Because it's really hard with a very small budget to be effective in terms of PR. And we rely on the state's marketing, which for a state our size is only at $6.2 million this year, and that includes tourism marketing. And it's not, with all the different channels, it's really hard to be effective. So that is definitely a challenge.
Because I think that, you're right. You hear about all the negative.
Right.
People moving out, the state shrinking population, it could somehow, be marketed as, an area that's thriving and people are coming and jobs, there are plenty of jobs. I think that would be an important message to get out.
We try, but apparently you haven't seen our marketing materials then.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to will you stay?
Sure,
And
absolutely.
for the CERC, because I
Yep.
think there's so much synergy that happens between you and CERC. It would be helpful to have you
That'd be great.
sit in.
Judy, thank you. That was wonderful
Thank you.
information.
And I gave a copy and I can send it to you electronically as
Okay.
well. And once we have the draft document, that 35 pages, we will send that over as well for comments.
And please reach out to us if there's anything
Okay.
that we as EDC can do to help you with your messaging or
Absolutely.
whatever it is that we need to do.
Best
Thank you.
wishes to the person editing that, by the way.
Thank you.
So, wonderful, thank you. So moving right along, do you want to take over now?
Sure.
Because you know most about what's going on?
Sure. I just wanted to, in way of introduction of our next agenda item, just a brief explanation. Our first selectman, Beth Heller, has been working with and been actually driving the arrangement that we're working toward with, still underway, with CERC. And we're leveraging their experience that they've had with a number of the cities and towns within the state of Connecticut over the past 15 plus years in supporting the economic development groups in those areas. So we're very happy that part of that arrangement actually includes their participation, their direct hands-on participation with our group, with this Economic Development Commission. And that'll begin tonight. They'll be working with guiding the commission and moving forward on your previous ideas, your existing ideas, and your ongoing ideas, and working with the Selectman's office on help shaping our agendas, attending the meetings, and doing and also the follow-up actions between the meetings that may need to take place that are very difficult considering your time and your energies. So this is just a great opportunity for us to revitalize the commission and the efforts and activities that you've been doing for quite some time now. Whether it's the outreach program, welcoming new businesses, upgrading the website, or engaging new property owners. And we ask that you continue to be as open-minded as you have, and you continue to commit your skill sets and your time and your energies toward the way you have been doing thus far. So, and I'm sure if we all do that, this is going to be a great success. So, CERC has reviewed about a year's worth of our minutes, so they're familiar with a lot of the initiatives that you've gone, whether it's the beautification, the Connecticut Transit, the website, the wayfinding project, Fallapalooza, or the Yale study that we've done. So at this point in time, we're glad. We'd like to introduce the folks who are here to join us this evening. And,
Yeah, please,
yes,
please,
please.
welcome.
join us. And first step is, I believe tonight is a brainstorming session, and we ask that please take us through that.
And I have some handouts, actually. Thank you very much. We're really excited. And it is, you're right, a good synergy with Ginny. And I just wanted to make one clarification that Ginny mentioned we're a state agency, and we're not a state agency.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I just want to be really clear about that for the folks at home and who are watching. We are an organization that is, as she said, somewhat funded by the DECD for specifically that international business recruitment that we're doing in Germany, Brazil, and Israel. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then the other piece is the regulated utility support that we are lucky enough to receive so that we can do a lot of our public mission work. So I know that our CEO, Bob Santee, many of you are familiar with and have worked with over the years because he's been in the New Haven region. But we are really excited to partner with you all, especially because you're already doing so much. So in reviewing your minutes, we were really pleased to see all of the different activities that you're already doing and where we can be helpful to sort of forward those because of your volunteer status. You know, we're happy to do that. Just by way of introduction, myself, I've been a local economic developer here in the state for the last decade, and before that in Texas. And so just being able to be on the ground in a town forwarding economic development, I have some experience there that I can bring, hopefully. And we just, as Ginny mentioned, where you can be the most influential and impactful, that's where you want to be spending your limited resources. And we feel the same way about any EDC. A lot of EDCs come to us and say, how can we, do an even better job? And a lot of them are a lot less sophisticated than you all are already. So I think we're just looking at helping you take it up a notch and, where we can help you forward great, impactful economic development in the community. That's where we want to focus. So we'll really be looking to you all as to where you want to focus and then where we can help you do that. So the handout that I just passed out was part of the municipal training that we're doing all over the state. And you all have actually received this training. I don't know if you all were part of the EDC or part of the leadership team in Woodbridge at the time. It was late 2015. It was before my time at CERC, actually. But we have now done this training in 80 of the 169 communities around the state, and we're actively doing it still. And it is in 3 parts. The first part is where we delve into some data and statistics about your community, and we really get into some of the industries and the demographics and fiscal indicators, the grand list, debt, that kind of thing. And then the second part is really sort of more of a universal definition of what is economic development, why it should matter to your community, what is the difference between real estate development and community development and economic development. And we really are sort of trying to forward some of the more bigger concepts that are out there now around placemaking and the choices that you have as a community. And then the third section, I usually do the training, or we do have a local economic developer who will do it with us just to really kind of get down and dirty in terms of what should you be doing on the ground for successful economic development. So I just printed those slides for you. I won't go into detail on them, but I did want to just point you to page 3 at the bottom and then page 4 at the top, the components of a successful program. And so these are the things, as you can hear when we're doing it 80 times over, we're preaching all of these things to all of the communities in the state because we feel like these are the best practices. So these may or may not be the things that you all want to focus on, but I just wanted to point those out to you because some of your minutes that we were reviewed mention some of these things, which is great. So I think we're going to probably be very much on the same page. And we're, again, really looking forward to working side by side with you. And we just wanted to offer tonight the opportunity for you all to tell us, what are you excited about? What's on your mind? What are you working toward? What can we sort of jump in on and be helpful on?
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Welcome. thrilled to have you. I really am excited to, step this up a notch, especially because we have the new zoning regs coming out, and I think there's some real opportunities there. Stepping back, as Bruce was here tonight on behalf of Schaefer Properties and Schaefer Development, we've found, and if we think an effective way to get businesses out of the community is bring businesses in to our meetings, so we can have this sort of, in-depth discussion, sort of interview, and because we know we're broadcast and we know we're now on YouTube and people can look at our meetings, not only on Channel 79, but can go to the website and then look at it, the program at their leisure, our meetings. So if we bring a business in, not only we are ambassadoring and having this conversation, but we bring it out to the community as well. That being said, we're really open to any other ideas that you or any of the other communities have, because we struggle with effective ways to make sure that we are liaisoning with our limited resources with the businesses. In fact, today I got an email that one of the printer on Selden Place is merging and moving into with Joyce print. It's the one I don't Prestige what? Advent's moving in with Joyce, so I actually immediately emailed them and said, would you come to our meeting, I asked for them if they come to our April meeting, by the way, Jamie, to see if they would come and discuss with us. But these are things we do, but we're really open to other ideas. But
And let me just ask, when you have Bruce and others come in, is there any sort of clearinghouse for that information? Is there any action that is taken from that information?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, we just want to know. We want them to be able to get their message out to the community.
Sure.
When new businesses come in, when we know of a new business, we'll ask them to come in. We will have any business really.
Sure.
We welcome all businesses in town. So if you have a business and you're watching, please reach out to Town Hall and we'll put you on the agenda, because we just think it's an effective way.
And it may inform some activities that we can do to address either concerns or, for example, with your piece around the development, now you know.
Right.
So
Exactly.
now we can help you hopefully, see that evolve. And without that, you don't know. So we always are encouraging business visitations and businesses coming in to chat with us, and there may be some actions that we can take.
Right. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in one of the meetings that there was a gentleman who just opened up a business not too long ago down on Amory Road. He indicated to us, and it was to my surprise, maybe not to some others, but that he felt he had a pretty hard time in terms of going through the process, and different some parties in town might have not felt like he was they necessarily wanted him along those lines. And to your point, in terms of action items subsequent to learning, it's like, okay, heard that, told him, geez, I wish you'd have come to us before, maybe we could have helped, things of that nature. And it'd be interesting to know how to take steps to so that doesn't happen again, rather than hoping that he talks to somebody who might be coming in and happens to mention, hey, go see the ADC, go see the EDC.
Right. I think that may be changing. I actually received a call from Terry Gilbertson's office that there's some businesses interested in expanding into Woodbridge, and I have a meeting tomorrow with him. So I think, if we can somehow, there can be some, bullet lists that when a business comes into the building department, if we can be notified, and I don't know how to make that happen.
It's something we've actually talked about with Sheila and Beth and others about sort of what happens at the very first, whether they come into town hall or make a call or do an email. What is that first interaction, and can we be sure that it's streamlined, it's consistent, it's warm and welcoming, it's all those things.
Right, so that may have already started, because I did receive this phone call yesterday, and I'm meeting with Terry tomorrow to find out what that is. But if that can be actually put, in writing and really in granite, that this is what happens when a business comes in, then we can really act as ambassador within, not just to the town, but within the infrastructure and the bureaucracy that is a municipality.
I can send you the list. I think we've had about 35 businesses in since we started this process over the last 2 or 3 years. And so to give you a good idea of who's been before us, in addition to what you've read in the minutes, and so we'll take a good cross-section of businesses representing our community.
Super. Thank you.
So for me, I mean, I think it's perfect for you to come in at this point because we really have an opportunity that we're going to have some real new zoning regulations that are real consistent zoning regulations in the business district for the first time probably ever. And looking what's going on in Hamden and looking what must be happening also in Oxford because there's a tremendous amount of development going on 67, is that? I think this is a great opportunity for the town to look at how do we make sure that something consistent happens within the business district once the new zoning regs come out and what that looks like. And because you have the background of what other cities, what other municipalities are doing, and probably what other states are doing to encourage development, it would be helpful for us to have that information because then we can review and suggest is I don't know if other towns are incentivizing or I just don't even know what's out there at this point. But it would really be helpful to know so we can have a consistent economic development policy to help increase the grand list.
How much have you all been able to inform the zoning regulations as they're being revised?
So very, very much so.
Good.
It was a bit of a battle. We were given the task many years ago of, before I was chair of Yale Urban Design Workshop. And that was a bit of a turf war because other commissions felt they should have received it. And so we worked very closely with Yale, and I think they came up with a great plan with a lot of input from property owners and business owners and residences. And we made sure, because I had taken some courses within the state of Connecticut that were offered, about how one negotiates with a new proposal. So I can't recall, there was some land use program that was run a couple of years ago out of Middletown. Fabulous. So when we were working with Yale, we made sure, thanks Bruce, we made sure to have, I made sure, because at that point I was commissioned, before we rolled out a final version, we took input from the different stakeholders. And we rolled it out. We rolled it out to the residents, we rolled it out to commercial property owners and the businesses before it was in final form.
Okay.
And so I think we got a lot of buy-in at that point. And we were surprised. We thought the residences were going to be our biggest issue. And, when we had the meeting, they said, well, what's taking you so long? And so, so it was surprising. So, and then, again, when it went to when POCD happened, we sort of had to advocate very harshly to make sure that they looked at the Yale Urban Design Workshop plan. And in the end, the town brought in Malone and McBroom, who saw the wonderful work that Yale had done, and so they used that as the foundation. And I was as chair, was part of the committee that chose Malone and McBroom, and then as a result of that, Leslie Crane, who was interviewed for that position, then became the town planner, part-time town planner, who's then now taking that and bringing it into regulation. So I think, even though we are not meeting with them on a regular basis, we laid the work, and they're adopting it.
Sure.
So,
Okay,
so I'm hopeful.
great. What else are you all hearing in the community from your businesses, or just sort of eager to?
I think traffic, as Bruce mentioned, getting that information back out again. As you said, it's going to be starting this year, and that is a major issue. Everybody I talk to complains about the traffic. The plan is out there, but we need the business community to know that something is happening, because for economic development purposes, anybody coming to town during rush hour sees that traffic and they're going to be turned away. And to know that there's a plan in place and to let everybody, remind everybody that the state is moving ahead with this spring, I think is definitely going to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping businesses informed.
I think one thing that we sort of tried to do last year, and we weren't really successful, is to have DOT look at the bus route. Tony Polinsky, who had been our staff person, sent out a survey to businesses, because apparently you need to have a survey to get the route changed. The route was, I think, created like 20 some odd years ago, before Bradley Road was improved. and the bus doesn't run down Bradley.
Yeah.
It's running down Lucy Street only. We have people walking from Lucy Street into our business district, to our commercial district, where the workers, so it's like a mile walk from the bus stop. So I think if you can figure out a way to help us get that DOT to look at that route, because I think really it shouldn't be running down a street that's narrow. I mean, it can run down the street that is narrow, but it should also somehow be running all the way up to Bradley Road, so that our workers can get to their jobs.
Absolutely.
So New Haven is doing a study right now on that, so you might want to follow up with Del Casley and get it rolled into the series of recommendations.
Okay.
That would be great, because I think that would really help. We've had a couple of people come in, and I mean, I've seen people walk. They walk a mile to get to work. It's really a problem. I mean, not that walking's bad, but if it's like yesterday and raining, it's really a problem.
Yeah.
It's nice, and there's not sidewalks either. So.
Now that I've tried to visit a few businesses, just to introduce myself, in EDC being a place where folks can contact and/or participate and come to. Signage seems to be one of the most prevalent discussions in the folks that I've spoken with, and most of them have been in the Lucy Street, Seldane, Lucy, and going down and a little bit into the corporate park. So that's something that's come up consistently.
Is that being addressed as part of the zoning revisions?
So we did the sign study, which Jamie was part of the commission, and it was part of a STEEP grant. But we kind of have run out of the money. So the signs are designed, but there's no funding for it.
So we have the wayfinding program in place, ready to go with the support of the Board of Selectmen. But it's strictly a funding thing. But what I've encouraged them to do is, when they have to replace a sign, to at least follow the wayfinding.
Right.
So it's not so much a budget issue at that time, that if there's a damaged sign, if there's a need to replace, and share it with all the different organizations within the community, whether it's the schools, whether it's the building department, whether it's public parks and rec. So at least we could start to see the signs come up and not get scared off by the big investment of doing everything
all at once.
As the opportunities arise for funds to put up a sign here or there, and we've identified where the top locations are and where we really need to put some signs. To Mika's point, to get that flow, the STEEP grant funding was specifically started to enhance the navigation of the business district.
Sure.
And so there are some signs that are developed strategically just for that purpose. And so it's not a huge investment to just put up a couple of those signs. One of the specific areas of concern is there's a residential area that is between the Parkway and the business, one of our corporate areas where my business happens to be located. And because there's this residential district there with use of programs such as Waze, it brings people down through that residential neighborhood because there used to be a through street which you can't go through. So we specifically designed signage to help address that, which would help the residents in that area so they wouldn't have this additional traffic. Problem is, a lot of people come from out of town to some of the sports centers down there, and they're using Waze. It's driving them through the residential area. We're trying to help address that with the signage, but we don't have the funding yet.
I've heard that the STEEP hopefully is going to be coming out again this late winter, early spring timeframe. So they're usually very keen on funding the rest of a project that's already been started. So that might be something we want to look at, helping you all be the applicant or working with the First Selectman's office. I don't know how grants work, but we'd be happy to help, support that.
Perhaps we could reprioritize the signs. And again, it's a big proposal. We don't want people get scared away with. We don't need signs everywhere.
Sure.
But again, look at
taking
where
some
the
targeted
priorities are
areas
to help the residents and the businesses within that business district. I think would be a win-win for everybody.
And I think a lot of messaging around exactly what you just said is also important to the entire community, so that they know we're working on this and it's really going to help both the residents and the businesses, and we can help with some of that too if that's something.
So the STEEP grants, just so you know, what I've seen is that they usually come from the from the First Selectman's office, but Tony Genovese, the finance director, seems to be really the person who's the point person
Okay.
on that and sort of prioritizing and creating
Sure.
the grant proposals.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Also, I was going to ask you, Jamie, if any of those, as you said, when replacing, have any of them come upon that yet and been replaced with the new guidelines?
Yeah, well, one,
One?
but it didn't follow the guidelines. So,
Okay.
Which one was it?
The one in the Garfield?
Right, the one in the cornfield.
Okay.
They tried to see if they could follow initially, even if it's just a design, if you will.
Sure.
Not necessarily all the characteristics, but as Jamie had indicated, Board of Selectmen support the effort, and they have communicated to the different departments.
Sure.
But it's not, if they don't have the report and they don't take and they really don't see exactly what it's necessary or what
Right.
we're looking for, it's hard for them
Right.
to do what needs to be done.
Yep. Okay.
But if you can create some sort of, procedure for
Right.
signage in the town,
Mm-hmm.
so that any signage
Exactly.
in the town needs to come through some clearinghouse, maybe at the Board of Selectmen, at the First Selectman's office,
Right.
so then they can make sure, because right now there's no real procedure in place
Right.
for signage.
Okay. These are all good. I didn't catch everyone's name, so would you mind? I should have introduced myself. If I didn't, I'm Courtney, and this is Sadie. Would you all mind telling us your names as well? Because we're going to, certainly with minutes and other things, we're going to need to know who's saying what.
I'm Mike Holland.
Thank you. We know Jamie and Jody.
Mika Cardozo.
Thank you, Mika.
Jeremy Rosner.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And Jeremy, though he's been a bit silent, is a real estate broker.
I
So he
figured
actually-
from some of the
Yeah,
references
so he
earlier.
has
Yeah.
actually really wonderful
Great.
knowledge to impart.
And Jeremy, have we all done a good job in Woodbridge of engaging with the brokers and the commercial real estate industry in general?
I think it's a pretty small community in Woodbridge, but I do think that the realtors have all felt pretty welcome in our groups. I know Real Living Work and Distilio have been here. I'm here. I don't know that my firm has necessarily come to a meeting, but I think that all the brokerages, I mean, there's only like 3 or 4 of us in town.
Sure.
I think we're all familiar with the development, and certainly familiar, if you're going to do commercial work in the town, you got to be familiar with the process of going through zoning. But I think that we've made a good representation to the brokers. They know that we've had some meetings with brokers and some other things, so we've certainly welcomed the community.
Good. And bringing them up to speed on these new revisions, I'm assuming.
So
Okay.
So we typically have one breakfast a year
Okay.
where we reach out to some community with whatever we're working on, and we're hoping to have when the new proposal comes in, we have it in our budget to engage as many people as possible, property owners and realtors, and anybody who wants to come really, so we can roll it out. But we absolutely intend to launch it and with the help of the Board of Selectmen or the First Selectman's office, really publicize. So we'll leave it up to TMPZ to promulgate the regulations, and then I think we'll take it on to try to blast it out there.
I mean, I think the developers and the business owners and the brokers in town benefit from the knowledge of the EDC, and if there's one thing we can do more of is probably just having their, being behind them when they go through the process, so we can support them and help them and convey their message. So for with this the Urbano development that they're trying to do, which is just a small little condo development. Originally, they got the idea that it was approved, and then they got called back to another meeting and subsequent meeting, and they're still going on, and this is going on for a number of months now. It'd be nice to be able to, so if Jody didn't know about it, or somewhere along the line, the message is being lost as to how those meetings were going.
Sure.
So it'd be nice to be able to, stand behind them and try to figure out what happened or why, and move projects along a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so maybe something that would help is if Courtney can take. No, wait, you're Courtney.
Yes, I'm Courtney.
Okay, so, and I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names.
Sadie.
Sadie. Okay, so Sadie can maybe make sure that we all receive the TP&Z minutes, so we can review and maybe we can know a little bit more.
Yes.
Attached to when our agenda gets circulated, if we can look and see what's going on the TP&Z, then we can probably be more up on it than we we have been.
Sure. I heard you say that you sent a letter
We did send a letter.
to, I'm assuming, the chair of the TPZ?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that's an example of something that I would say is a very sophisticated action that an EDC is taking in this state, because we see a lot of EDCs where we're really trying to kind of get them to that point where they're even making those kind of good decisions for or against an economic development, a development proposal, that it makes good sense or it doesn't, and then we're relaying that information to the land use regulatory boards. What I wonder is that, again, procedural?
So that was, it's interesting that you raised it, because it was the first time we've ever done it.
Okay.
And Jim Urbano, truth be told, built my house. And his
Yeah.
wife, Diane, used to sit on this commission. So he felt very comfortable coming to me and saying, would you write a letter?
Sure.
And I, as an attorney, said, well, wait a second. I don't feel comfortable myself writing a letter, but if you can come before a commission and present to our commission, and then we could take a vote, then, and if the commission votes to create a letter, then I'm happy to draft the letter.
And I recuse myself from that vote,
right,
because I do work
right.
with them.
Right, so we went through that because, so it wasn't, that was not what was requested, but I sort of, brought it to the commission, and I felt very comfortable then that we were working within, proper guidelines. But it's not templated.
Okay.
But it was interesting, Tony, because the next thing that happened was I think it was the meeting right after that, when the gentleman came from Elm City.
Yeah.
And he basically asked for a similar, I don't know how you said it, Micah, it was an intervention on a business's behalf from the commission. So I think we had 2 or 3 things that all happened right in a row, where it seemed like the businesses were asking for
Looking for an advocate.
an advocate as part of the town process.
So part of that might just be packaging that now as that's our new program. That's what we do now. And getting the word out to applicants and would-be developers to say, come to us first, because we can really help you by making a good decision in your favor, presumably. Some might not be good, but they'll take that risk and they'll say, well, we would really like a thumbs up from EDC, because we know that that's going to lead to either testimonial or a letter or whatever that is, and that can be something they take into account when they're making their decision.
And I think perhaps that's something, thinking about what we're talking about is identifying who some of these stakeholders are. Somebody like Bruce, and getting this message out to them, because we do have some other folks like that own a couple, either they own one piece of land and there's 4 or 5 buildings, or they own one piece of land and they've got 15, 20 tenants, and some of those property owners, and as Jody had mentioned, we hosted an event a couple of years ago, but it seems to be a very critical time to reach out to them again and let them know what we're doing here on behalf of EDC, and perhaps maybe an introduction to the fact that we're working with CERC. And we really want them to be more engaged. We're more engaged, just some way to, introduce what we're doing, so these folks know that there are improved resources within our community. I mean, I can think of at least a half a dozen people, in addition to Bruce, that it would be helpful for them to have this information.
Yeah. With an EDC like yours, I think a lot of what we'll end up doing is doing that kind of marketing, with you, that really shows the community that you're doing good work and that they need to be the ones receiving that information so that they can take advantage of.
I mean, one of them, for example, is the one that
resources.
mentioned the signs, and that was one of the reasons that it was a big issue, and that we need to help improve the wayfinding. And so if they knew we were doing this sort of thing again, they can see, quite frankly, that their tax dollars are going to help support business.
And we're responding to your concerns directly.
With our new partnership synergy with CERC, do we have a raise in budget sort of with marketing or anything like that outreach-wise, or just curious? Because I know we've been constrained sort of budgetary-wise in terms of marketing.
So there's a fee that goes along with using CERC, and we've, right now, we actually had money budgeted for clerical, which is now, I guess, going to CERC. The town is committed to sort of dipping into reserve, well, not reserves, but if it doesn't snow too much, we'll have more money to play with, basically. And then I went before the commission, I went for the Board of Finance, and that's part of our request for next year.
Right now, it's still in progress in terms of the entire arrangement is still being negotiated and planned out with the people involved with that's with the First Selectman's office, and as Jody said, portion of it we can afford to do now, which encompasses what Sadie and we're doing here, but in terms of the longer term and the greater the additional activities that they'll be performing, that's still being worked out.
Got it.
And the money's involved with that. Like Jody said, if we have more money in contingency, we might be able to do a little bit more this year, but we're looking for budgeting it for, in a way that's consistent with our process.
Right, and what's interesting about this is it's actually Board of Selectmen driven.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I have to say, we're not there. Mika and the Board of Selectmen are actually taking the lead on this. So we're not. So we have their. We're not only do we have their full support. They're basically saying we think we need this, and they're telling us that we need this, as opposed to us going up to them and begging like we really need this. It's really Board of Selectmen driven.
Beth's office, which includes her staff, are really completely spearheading this. And, and they're driving it. She wants to see this happen. She's committed to it. She's the one who's driving it, and so. But it's still right now. It's not been firmed up completely. So there's still more going on.
To the point of the marketing, I think that's where Sheila can certainly help on behalf of some of the free opportunities out there, getting this messaging out there, and using the public opportunities that we have to let people know that we're working with CERC. Hopefully, get that message out to some of the business owners, and if there's 25, 30 of our top property owners in town that need a letter, that shouldn't be a big deal, I would think. But some of those folks, I think, really do need to understand that we are really working hard to help support and improve the business climate in our community.
Courtney, in terms of, I'm just referring to your slide 3 that you referred us to. When you say business visitation, I would often wonder, because as I say, I go out and I introduce myself, I let them know about the EDC. I don't know if we're better served by having a more formal and/or organized type of a process for that. And considering that everybody's doing other things, we don't have a full-time EDC. Person who can make that part of their job. Right. What else? What other opportunities? What other options are there for that?
It really runs the gamut, and every community does it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the fact that you have the businesses coming in here is a great start, and I would probably say we want to supplement that with some visitation, and we can do that through combination of us helping with that, you all doing maybe a little bit of that, with the time that you have to spare, and maybe some folks from the First Selectman's office, sort of making it a team effort. And it doesn't have to be a heavy lift. I mean, it can be one a week, and among that whole team, we're talking 3 to 4 a month at that point. I mean, we can sort of share the load of that. But just like you're hearing them in here with their concerns and their ideas, you're going there, you're touring the factory floor, you're telling them that they're appreciated and that they're, we're really grateful that you're in Woodbridge and that you're thriving. We want to see you continue to thrive. Do you have any plans for expansion? Are you concerned? And we can put you in touch with any, bankers that we know, or utility experts for energy efficiency, those kinds of resources that you can offer. It's sometimes easier when you're on site with them because they're so proud. They want to show you all, their workspace. And sometimes you can get into a little bit more detail with them rather than just having them here. So we could look at, supplementing that in a way that works for all of us to be going out to visit businesses. But that retention piece is arguably really the most important thing that you want to be focused on.
So one thing I didn't say, I think Nico is that this one of you organizations ran this breakfast over in East Haven. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
And we, as an EDC, I think the town always discouraged home businesses, and then I think you ran it. You ran it.
Oh,
Your speaker said, well, actually, most businesses are actually expanded from home, and so you have valuable resource in home businesses because you're hoping that they're going to go big enough that they need new space, bigger space, and then they'll stay in your town. And so it sort of changed our focus entirely. Thank you for that. And so I don't only consider going into a business, brick and mortar business, as talking to a business. I think consider talking to any business in town, any home business in town, as our ambassadorship as well. And we've had home businesses here speaking with us, which 10 years ago, 15 before that, I don't think we would have ever had a home business.
And it's growing.
There's so many more now, and we kind of file that under entrepreneur support, and so that's another element of the kind of formula of what great economic development is, and that can include business visits, if you will, but it often is something that they welcome the opportunity to get out of their homes and come together. And so maybe we decide we want to put on an event for bringing them together to network with each other, with all of you, with the Board of Selectmen, that kind of thing. So that's common.
The town has, through Betsy Yagla, started a business happy hour.
Oh, great.
Every so often. I don't think we've done one in a while. I don't know with the new administration how that will happen. But that was, people really took advantage of going to different restaurants in town and just socializing.
Cool.
And that was a way to to find new businesses in town.
Absolutely.
That we didn't.
They love FaceTime with you all, with Board of Selectmen. They want to tell you their concern. They want, them. They want a pat on the back that they're here and they're doing great. And so that is, I think, a really nice, powerful kind of event to take place.
Given the tour last month, I'm sure the JCC would love to show off their new facility in that regard, because they're
So we
Yale, New Haven's got the
last month
Grove
we've
and
actually went
everything,
on-
but the JCC space is pretty impressive.
It is.
And we have an incubator there, right? Like you want it. So last month we realized we didn't have much going on at the meeting. We were supposed to have the JCC come to speak to us, because I don't know if you're familiar with the fact they had a fire in the JCC, and then they were just reopening, and they were supposed to come speak to us about it. But we have the benefit of having PUA and our wonderful broadcast network, which I know from people stopping me in the store that people watch. And so we actually went to them, and we had our meeting. I wasn't here; I was at a wedding, but Jamie led the meeting, and we had our meeting at the JCC, and so that the town was actually able to have a little mini, tour of the JCC.
That's great.
It's an amazing facility that they've
I'm sure they appreciated the
rebuilt there.
exposure. And
Yeah. So we're trying. We're cognizant. We're cognizant that we're broadcast, and that's So we don't view ourselves as just sitting in this room. We view that the fact that we're broadcast as a window to our community, and we try to use that. Obviously as much as possible.
Great.
So any ideas that any other towns have on how to do that better, I'm open. I'm always open to new ideas.
And it's okay if I can speak. Having spoken to this group since 2010, you have come a long way. You really should pat yourself on the back. One of the things that you may want to do, and I know Courtney can arrange it, is to go to other communities' EDC meetings and see how they function and get some ideas that might work for this group. Or really be proud of yourself, because they're not always as sophisticated, as Courtney pointed out, as you are. But there's some good models out there that might help share the workload. And now that you do have CERC on board, which is great, this is all going to help you.
No, I'm thrilled.
And could we also, I've talked to people like Dale over in Hamden.
Right.
Then
Terry Elton, Wallingford.
Wallingford, yes. I've met with him a couple times.
They're all a little different on how they're modeled. Milford is different as well, and they do some interesting things around sector work. One of the things that Milford does focus on is building their tourism side because of their assets there, and new things that are coming into that market. So they take a little different approach. Wallingford, it's broken up into a committee structure, and they're not big committees, they're not big groups, and they have spread the work around, and that is working well for them. And Dale Croup does a variety of different things, and I'm sure they're proud of their work too. They would love to share and come and present here, or you can go see their meetings. They would welcome it.
And Orange is having I got something on Facebook that they're having their Business Expo, but then it went to Link Through and it went to.
Yeah, they're having their Business Expo. I just presented to them on Tuesday.
Okay, because we'll tell them the link is broken.
I will tell Anne Marie if the link is broken, but they're having it in June.
Okay.
It's either the 6th or the 14th. I will find out.
And Hamden's having one too. So
I'm sorry?
Hamden's having one too.
Right.
Ginny, it would be really valuable. I know early when I joined the committee, I went through the CERC data a lot, looking at other towns, and it would be really helpful from your breadth of knowledge and yours in CERC, what other towns we should benchmark against, because I mean, clearly us comparing ourselves to Milford.
Right.
I'm head of a technology company in Norwalk, and it's a completely different planet, right? But it's hard for us to find good benchmarks that we should be looking at. So that would be really helpful for us.
So I was listening to channel 12 maybe, and I guess, and had on the background, and Weston was on. The board.
Yeah.
I think the first selectman from Weston was on, and what was so interesting to me, because we think of Weston as so much wealthier than having a bigger grand list than we are. They seem to be experiencing the exact same issues we were having, and they have very little commercial area. So I don't know.
Right, it might be places like Ridgefield.
Yeah. Well, they have a bigger commercial area.
You're right, they have the downtown.
But Weston is similar because they're the sort of the suburban Westport.
But it's hard to compare to Fairfield County.
It is.
Real estate value.
But no, just from but aside from the
challenge.
the zeros, I think their challenges are actually very, from what they were saying, were very similar to what our challenges are.
And in fact, they've had percentage problem like we do, which is like it's 95% residential, even if it's add another zero at the end, it's still 95% residential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I've worked with their town manager on a couple of issues, and they do have a lot of similarities.
So I don't know if we can view their minutes or whatever, however you think would be best, but that was, at least in my experience, the town that, because I would have thought they had, they didn't have the same problems, but actually I have a friend who sold a house there, and they have had they've had, I think, a more significant drop in their real estate values as percentage than we've had. They've really been pummeled since 2009.
And not only do they have very little commercial, but it's all owned by the same person. So
Similar to what we
that's
have
a
that as
challenge
well.
Yeah.
And I think this is where CEDIS membership for the EDC might be worthwhile. That it's made up of the economic development professionals across the state. It's really inexpensive.
I thought we had one. We did have one.
You
I know we
might.
budgeted for it.
I can definitely check on
Yeah.
Right. I know I just paid mine. I think it was $125.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
We had been a member
Right.
for a while.
And just getting that ongoing information and getting the member list of who else is there just makes it easy to email someone. And
Yeah.
Let me double check that.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Courtney, is there anything we can do as economic development officers to show you some of the areas or in town or some
Yes,
of
I would love that actually.
the property, real estate owners?
Driving around with all of you. I mean, you'll show me different things, and I think that would actually be really helpful. And I don't want to take up valuable time that you have, but over the next several months, we could do drive arounds or certain introductions to certain property owners or business owners. That would be really welcomed. So I'll tap you for those things.
Well, we're coming upon 9 o'clock, so I think it's been a long meeting, but I think it's been a really productive meeting. I don't want to cut you short if there's anything else.
Not at all.
We need.
No, we will write up a lot of this, and we'll bring back to you
Okay.
sort of the key pieces and kind of go from there together.
Okay.
So thank you.
I will not be. So will you be will you be coming to our meetings? Or?
Yes, we'll plan to.
Both of you.
We'll plan to kind of work with you all ahead of time
Okay.
on agenda items, and certainly in between meetings on follow-up items as we get going. But we'll attend the meetings, and we'll kind of serve in that minutes role as well as bouncing ideas and activities and stuff.
So our next meeting is March 8th. I will not be here. I will be out of town. Jamie will be leading it. And thank you, all of you. I think that this is really a wonderful new direction that Woodbridge is going in, and I'm thrilled that the EDC is going to be at the helm of it. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
And make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous? Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.